As we all know, baseball is a team sport, and our team today has some special players. And our next guest up is a panel, and our panel today will discuss the ever-changing marketing technology that is affecting online buyers and sellers in today's market. One of the hardest positions in baseball is the catcher. It's physically demanding. They receive pitches in a squat position, and they definitely get dealt a bunch of punishment from balls thrown in the dirt. Marketing can be very similar to that, trying to do it all with so little. The core of MLS, of course, is cooperation and compensation, but brokers and agents are utilizing MLS data more and more for marketing. It's a delicate balance between data and marketing. But marketing plays such a big role for the listing broker, and today's marketing is much more advanced than from prior days. David Baker with Skyhorse Global and Barker Realty will be the team moderator today. David previously worked for the Walt Disney Company, UCLA, and public relations in Los Angeles. He is a regular public speaker on media and real estate marketing. David has taught media at colleges and universities in the U.S. and abroad. Let's welcome David James Baker. Welcome, David.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Good to see you again, and always good to hear from our friends in Colorado. I'm down here in a bunker in Santa Fe, and really excited to be part of this panel today. We have some fantastic people. I think that you are all going to really enjoy the conversation that's about to take place. Megan, why don't we bring in our guests, and I'll introduce Patrick Legenesi, who is a member of the actually works for the North Carolina MLS, and we have Sarah Fogg, and they're all interesting to me, but Sarah's interesting to me because she's with the New England Real Estate Network, an MLS that is multi-state. It's New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, I think. I hope I got all of them. You guys are an expanding empire, I can tell. And also Crystal McCaslin in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And Crystal is with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Steinborn and Associates, a longtime firm in southern New Mexico. And those names are all very familiar. If you're familiar with real estate in New Mexico, you're familiar with those names. So we have a broker perspective, and so glad that Crystal is here too. So we've talked about this as being about virtual tours, and it's a kind of a general term when we talk about virtual tours. I think we need to maybe define a little bit what virtual tours are, because it can be in a 3D environment, it can be in a 2D environment. Certainly it includes internet, and certainly it includes some kind of video or media. And of course, for today's conversation, there's a big emphasis right now on 3D virtual tours. And when we talk about virtual tours, I think we should also kind of break it out a little bit, because we have digital tool providers, and we're all trying to figure out what tools should we use, what's best for our clients. We have agents on the buyer side and agents on the seller side. So if you start to build some kind of a Venn diagram, you got tools, you've got a selling side, you've got a buying side, but a critical player in all of this is the MLS provider. And that's why we have folks here from the MLS, because being connected to an MLS that enables you to follow your clients and connect with your product or your inventory, connect with other brokers, is the essential role that the MLS plays. And we all know that the MLS is only successful when everything is on it. If you don't have something on an MLS, if something's an exclusive, if something's not on the MLS, it devalues the power, I think, of the MLS. So MLSs are critical to our success. And I think what I'd like to do is start with Patrick, because Patrick brings a lot of experience. And Patrick, can I just ask you for a couple of minutes to talk to us about what you see happening in this environment, this 3D virtual tour environment?
Thanks, David. Yeah, I think everybody's experiencing it. I call it the sight unseen mania. It may have started with Amazon buying a sweater Then it moved to people buying cars online. Now, after the pandemic of 2000, we're seeing about a 33% purchases of sight unseen online, which is fascinating. Redfin did a study in 2001, and we would think that, oh, it's only the millennials that are purchasing. But through their survey, we're finding that, yes, surveyed 41% of millennials said they purchase online. But what's fascinating is 30% of Gen Xers and 12% of baby boomers. So I look at this trend as something that's sticking around, like watching movies at home, and how it impacts us. And I'd love to hear from Crystal to see what she's seeing where it hits the road. Are you seeing the same trends in New Mexico?
Let me jump in there before we go to Crystal, because I want to save Crystal after we talk to Sarah, and I want to kind of set a foundation here. Sarah, talk to me a little bit from the MLS side. As an MLS person, you're responsible for everything that happens on the platform, good news, bad news, right? And you're the people that brokers get. You get the brunt of frustration, I think, when things are not working. How do you balance this from the MLS perspective?
I think the balancing act is a little different for us. We try and provide as many tools and services that we possibly can for our members. We always want to make sure that our members have as the most up to date as possible. But it's also, if people are upset or frustrated, a lot of time it's because they weren't trained on a product, so they don't understand how it works. So a lot of our focus ends up being towards the training, whether it's via our YouTube channel, so it's an on demand. They can do it at 1 o'clock in the morning if they wake up, or live webinars. Of course, with COVID, everything switched to remote. So we try and do a lot of educational when it comes to that type of thing. And that normally de-escalates somebody right down.
Do you think this is a change we're seeing with MLSs, that MLSs are having to increasingly be more responsive and provide more training?
Incredibly so. If MLSs aren't training on the products, they need to be. Because the members, you can put something out there, you can throw it in a newsletter, you can put up a bulletin or something to let them know it's there. But if you don't offer them the opportunity to learn how to use that tool or product, it's not going to get the usage. They're going to be missing out. And in some cases, their clients are going to be missing out because they're not using a marketing avenue that could truly enhance the selling of the property.
So what do you do as an MLS? I'm surprised we have this many licensed brokers on the call today. I mean, there's like stacks of paper around me. Some of them are smoking, right? So how do you get people's attention and engagement on training?
Well, part of it is our director of education and marketing. She went and got CE credits for a lot of our stuff. So on our MLS platform, we have got, I want to say, 6 to 7 different training things that are actually accredited. It's communicating. You've got to talk. You've got to talk to your boards. We're actually owned by 25 shareholder boards. So for us, we get it out to our boards too, and let the boards filter down and say, hey, there's training going on. There's a new product going on. You guys, hey, Niren's going to teach about it. So join this webinar. And it's sort of saturating that way a bit, just to turn around and get that engagement and get the excitement. You've got to be positive towards it. Hey, it's something new. Check it out. This is going to help you out. And get that excitement going towards a new product or service.
So here we are in this growing 3D world. It sounds like what you're saying is you've had to start spending a lot of time helping brokers be prepared to conduct virtual showings and virtual transactions. Is that right?
I think we just had to sort of help them pivot into a new world. With COVID, New Hampshire was considered essential. Real estate was considered essential. In Vermont, it was not. And those are our two main. We're the primary MLS for both states. So Vermont, everything had to switch. Everything had to go remote, the entire transaction. So it's sort of helping them be more comfortable in a virtual world that they were forced to move to in a very rapid pace.
Okay, fantastic. Here we go, Crystal. I'm excited to talk to you about this because there's this thing that happened. Well, none of us like change, or actually, we all like change if someone else changes to accommodate me. I really like that kind of change. But when Megan calls me up and says I have to change, it's like, oh, come on, I can't do it. So, Crystal, can you talk a little bit about life before the pandemic? You are the boots on the ground in New Mexico, and what has the change been when we think about how transactions were done? And maybe we should back up a little bit and say, if you've been in real estate for more than a decade, you remember small books that had small photographs, and that was the virtual tour, and then you like drove to these places. But now what we have are clients moving across all sorts of MLS boundaries. We have clients wanting to stay with their broker. In some cases, I'm even seeing clients who want to stay with their local broker but have them work as a foreign agent with a broker in another location. So Crystal, talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing happen before the pandemic to now.
Thanks, David. Absolutely correct, right? And I mean, when we talk pre-COVID, this was coming. It was coming regardless of how we felt about it. We just got thrown into it all of a sudden. So, virtual showings were absolutely something that was part of our normal life. And it's definitely that emerging market, but it was very, oh my gosh, how do I do this? How do I do this? And so it's really nice when we have our MLS providers that partner and try to bring us those tools so that we're not out there searching for them. But yeah, I mean, those were the days of, hey, do you have Facebook Messenger? So Facebook Messenger video for me and Facebook Messenger video for you. And we're going to walk around this house. And, that was the beginning of it. And you realize the quality of your internet, the quality of your video, it maybe wasn't the best. And so as we pivot into this market of all online and massive buyers and the crazy market of, things are not on the market long enough and you can't fly down to see a property, all of these tools have become essential. And now it's part of not just the buyer process, but a listing process, so that I can provide those tools up front and help everybody in the party. So I mean, I definitely feel everyone's pain, and I think that this is definitely here to stay forever. And what a convenience for all of us that it is here to stay. So, as long as we can make that adaptation that you are so excited about, then, using all of these tools we have helps everybody in the process.
Okay, that's a really interesting series of points, and one of the things you're making me think about is that now a broker has, and I'm going to ask you this: is it true that you have the one virtual tour platform tool that you use, or do you look at a property and look at the broker on the other side and pick and choose? How do you do that?
Sure, yeah. So we have what's provided to us, and I know Sarah's going to mention what products they have available, but you have basic services, which is really nice quality photography, and that's, the baseline critical element. And then you have maybe a floor plan, maybe you have a Matterport 3D tour walkthrough. You look at all of these tools you can utilize. And yes, I'm looking at who's on the other side of that transaction because I have to decide if they have those tools available to them. So if it's my listing, I want to make sure that those tools are out there, even if I have to be the one to go out and make that happen for that agent. Because, it's my responsibility as the listing broker to my seller to make sure that we give that property the best shot possible. So, there's a lot of tools and a lot of options available for us, but if everybody and every step of the process is trying to make this a seamless and awesome transition for the buyers, then it's a win-win.
That's a really interesting point about what works for the buyer, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for the buyer, it doesn't matter how great our platforms are, how great our technology knowledge is, how high resolution our video or images are, the buyer has to be able to access them. Do you find it to be different in the business, in the practice of real estate, to manage a buyer or a seller through a remote 3D virtual tour? How's it different for you?
Yeah, every buyer is unique. And I know Patrick touched on this with the different generations that we're serving right now and who's really on board with video and who's not. We've had this rolling discussion about Matterport because, it's such a cool tool, but some of my clients think that, it's a really frustrating thing to click on these little bubbles and they can't really figure out where they're going. And so I know that all of this technology is continuing to adapt with us in this market. So I'm sure Patrick will talk to us a little bit about Matterport because he's really good with that. But if my client only has FaceTime, then I'm going to find somebody with an iPhone and we're going to FaceTime. And, that's just the way it's going to be. But that's why I try to provide a video up front, right? So why not have a nice listing video so that if we don't have a product that works for them, then great. Virtual tour, right? With a virtual reality headset. That may not be something that a lot of my buyers are interested in exploring. But if it's something they want, absolutely. I had a seller who said, I want this option available. And so, I won the listing because I said, absolutely, we can make that happen. So, you have to have all those tools in your tool belt and be able to accommodate every situation, really.
That's another interesting point that I want to go back to, Patrick, is this idea of, okay, you're managing the buyer. You also have to manage the seller. And some of these tools are now being requested by the seller. And I feel like they're being requested even when they have minimal impact on the buyer. But your job is to represent the seller. So if the seller asks for mayonnaise, you better have mayonnaise. Okay.
That's right. Best mayonnaise I can find. And I'm gonna depend on Patrick and Sarah to find the mayonnaise products out there so that I know what I can use.
Okay, fantastic. Patrick, talk to us a little bit. I think of you as being a bit of a futurist, someone who is looking at the now, but also has a sense for where we're headed with virtual tours and remote transactions. Talk to us about what you're seeing.
Well, I think you need to start with the word efficiencies. This goes for efficiencies for the consumer, efficiencies for the realtor, efficiencies for the MLS. And if you go back to who is running this, it goes back to the consumer. And if 33% today are buying online and looking at properties or using that as influential, that's a trend that's pushing us in that direction. Will we be 100% virtual buying? I don't see it. People still read newspapers. People still go online to get their news, 50-50. But this brings us to a point that says the process is to make the home buyer feel confident and feel like they're seeing the property in person. So when we look at these tools, it's like, do the listing agents have the tools or know about the tools they can use? There's tools today that are so inexpensive, they can use their phones, their smartphones. If they have flow plans or Kubicasa or even Matterport, they can use their phones today to walk through that property and do a 3D tour or get a floor plan, which again, in a survey that came from NAR last year, the floor plans are critical now. And this was always optional, as Chris might say, like before the pandemic, it's just optional. Photography, videos, 3D tours are critical now. So what kind of images are you getting? I think it brings us down the road with the knowledge of what are these tools and how do you get to these tools? What is a video? Is a video good enough to do? Is a walkthrough video good enough to do? I can talk to Sarah about our MLSs and your MLSs. Do we post up walkthrough videos? What are the costs of these services? Because I've heard on the ground that it's too much money to do this for everybody, or I'm in such a remote location. But as we'll talk about later with appraisers, it's not an if, but a when. And that when is coming sooner than these are critical tools that all realtors should have on a platform. For us as an MLS, is we see that future, and we're having a showing service that will promote showings, because showings used to be physical. Now showings have to be virtual, and offering a tool, not just Matterport or any 3D tour, that allows a realtor to drive the consumer and discuss the consumer like we're talking today in a virtual environment, impacts not only the seller of that property because they're getting the most exposure, but the buyers as well, because you might have a buyer that doesn't get off till 10 p.m. at night. They're looking for a house, and the agent can pop on instead of going out and doing a FaceTime video. Shoot, now they can basically go online And if everybody's using the 3Ds, is do a tour through with them to figure out which properties, A, if they want to put an offer in, or B, do they want to actually go physically see the next day? And it streamlines those, again, efficiencies down for them.
Let me ask you a question, Patrick. When I listen to you, what's in my mind is these different tiers of and Crystal too, these different tiers of a virtual transaction, of a virtual showing of a 3D tour. And I'm continuously amazed when I log into MLSs and look at just basic photography that so often people in our profession are missing an opportunity to just think of their tour, to think of their marketing plan as excellent photography. Now, when I say excellent photography, I'm not suggesting you need to bring Ansel Adams in to photograph the house. What I'm talking about is at a very basic level, you have well lit, color balance, in focus photography. Can you talk about these different tiers that you see, Patrick, when we begin to enter this world of remote and virtual tours and transactions?
Well, I think technologies has reached a threshold that we shouldn't have any dark exposures. Smartphones for the past 2 years with their technologies are beautiful. Me being a photographer, I can go in a house and shoot with a $5,000 camera or shoot with an iPhone and deliverable results. And I think it's relying on somebody if they have the capabilities for that. The other threshold is the cost barrier. It used to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a Matterport. I just know in our area here is you can get Matterport and an aerial and photos for around that $240 limit for all houses. So it's that barrier of entry that says with technology comes the cost. And I think that knowledge says, oh, are these out of reach for anybody? And I don't think they are. But when you have a market that's moving this quick and this fast, how much should you put down for marketing when you know you can post up one picture and the house is going to sell that day and everybody's going to be happy? I think the question goes back down is what loyalty do you owe the owner of that property to get the best offer out there? Did you miss 3 offers that if you had a virtual tour that may have given them $20,000, $30,000 more dollars?
I think that's a great point. I mean, who's ever had a property listed and there was a showing, and for some reason or another, the people who were on the showing were not allowed to see the guest house? Okay. it's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's no different than that big of a missed opportunity. And I love this point that you're making about cost thresholds. And there's 2 sides to this, Sarah. There's a cost threshold. I can call you up and complain all day about this platform or that platform, or my images are in poor resolution because of the MLS platform that somebody selected. Not your fault. But how do you think about cost levels in this virtual world from the MLS point of view?
I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Number one, luckily for us, our MLS platform vendor has been responsive when things have happened. When COVID happened and we needed live stream, that ability it was boom, they had it in very short order. They tend to be very responsive in that way. With photos, it depends, on the different platforms. Some have high res, some have them and end up, compressing that down a little bit. But we actually don't get a lot of complaints at all when it comes to the photos.
Are you finding increase in your cost as an MLS? Are you challenged by increasing costs and the time it takes to manage all these platforms?
The costs, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, in some aspects. But if you have something that you're dealing with your platform and it becomes a benefit for their entire platform versus requesting something specifically for your MLS, then the costs are going to be much lower if there are costs, because they may roll something out as a system-wide platform advancement. So in that case, in that place, that there is no cost.
It's true that if you have the tool that I use and the buyer and the seller can use, it doesn't cost me anything, and that's That's great. Now that's usually not the case because as Crystal was saying earlier, in the real world, we're weaving together technologies and platforms to make things work.
And the other thing is it's the power that you have depending on your we have over 11,000 members. So we've got a little bit more to turn around and bring costs lower. When you have more members, the costs are lower when you go to purchase products in most cases. So that's helped us out quite a bit too as we've expanded and grown our membership over the past couple
And
years,
has
especially.
that driven your expansion as an MLS? Have other MLSs folded into yours? This technology cost, has that been an issue?
Surprisingly enough, we acquired the Vermont MLS back in 2010, and we became the primary MLS for 2 states. But we do have shareholder boards who are owners in Massachusetts as well. So we cross borders there. We have in Maine. We allow listings and membership from Rhode Island, Connecticut. You were right on that, and actually now New York as well.
Wow.
So for us, it's allowing marketing.
Okay.
I talked to one of our brokers in Vermont the other day, and she didn't realize that she could put her New York listings in to get that extra marketing. So it's just another tool.
Well, and to Patrick's point, do you, from the MLS side, when people are trying to create a virtual tour through photography, through video, through 3D visualizations, do you ever look at the media and say, that's horrible?
Well, we're a little different too because we actually offer a free virtual tour to our members. We've done that for years, and we offer a branded and an unbranded version because you have to think also where all this new technology is coming in, and I know Patrick can talk to this too, is when you have branded and you have unbranded, that branding can't go out on IDX websites. So there's compliance issues that come with all of this new technology along with everything else, and it's never ending because it's like you said, the only constant is change, right? In real estate, that's how it works.
Okay, great. Crystal, I want to kind of go this direction, down this path a little bit with you. I see that you have listings in all ranges, up to luxury, and I can see that you're very, very active. When you approach a new listing and you're thinking about a virtual tour, when you're thinking about photography all the way to virtual tour, how do you decide what you're going to do? What are some of the things that go in your brain as you're working with this seller?
Absolutely. So, I am a member of 4 MLSs. So it's something that, we try to keep all of those ducks in a row. And as Sarah talks about the difference between what you can and can't have, it's what can I put in this one and not in this one. And so it's really, what is my option is number one, right? What am I allowed to do in whatever MLS I need to serve this customer in? And then beyond that, it's what's available. So obviously my very first choice is going to be professional. So if I can get professional photography, professional videography, that's where I want to go first off. And then of course, flow plan, Matterport, what can I add in? What can I do to enhance this listing? And sometimes it's a matter of timing also, right? So as we're going through each of these products and trying to add everything in, at a bare minimum, I want to make sure that we have beautiful photos and that we have some type of floor plan available for people. So then beyond that, what can I do to enhance? And then if it sells immediately, like maybe I didn't get to that video tour. And, it's not always that I'm able to do every product, but I come into every listing thinking about that whole package and wanting to accommodate every seller with an entire package of media so that I win new listings based on current listings, and I serve a bigger customer basis by doing a good job with the customer that I have, thinking about the customers that I will have.
Are you ready to say, or are you willing to say that every listing that you take at the bottom level should have professional looking photography and a floor plan? Or is that where we're at now in this online environment?
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from my buyers, right? So this is why I love the flow plan, because the buyers say, I love the photos, but I can't really figure out where that one weird closet was or this office space. How does it sit between the bedrooms? And so when they can mirror those beautiful professional photos with that floor plan, then they can, visually in their brain create that house And a Matterport does that, right? But not everybody wants to use that tool. So, I mean, really the options are limitless. But yes, I mean, professional photography and a floor plan should be the basics of where I'm going with that.
Okay, and then I also am hooked onto this idea that you're talking about having to be a member of multiple MLSs. Obviously, I'm multi-state licensed in multiple MLSs. Sarah's doing that too. It's this idea that you need different things from different MLSs in terms of how you visually reach your clients through media. Is that the case? Is that why you're a member of 4 different MLSs? You need these different tools, these different things in different MLSs?
Yes.
Seems
Yes.
like a
It's
lot of
all
money and a lot
about,
of membership. Why
right.
do you do
Patrick
it?
talks about, what am I going to spend on marketing? Well, I mean, how do I factor in 4 MLSs for every listing, right? So I don't. And it doesn't mean that every listing is going into every one of those MLSs, but I have a specific customer that I need to take care of. One of my MLSs is a commercial database, right? So I have the commercial MLS for New Mexico, and that's a very specific customer. And that doesn't mean that the other 3 MLSs are going to do the same thing for me, but I definitely want it in that local market as well as that commercial market. And the platforms are so incredibly different. Like we use Black Knight, like some of our panelists do, and I have a Flex program, and then the Cardam program is completely different. So that commercial platform isn't either of those products. And so as we're going in and, I have an assistant that helps me keep all this stuff straight in my brain. And so as we're using each of those products, we have to make sure that we're tailoring what we need to fit the rules for that product. And how do we best market towards that customer? Because it is different on each of those.
Okay, great, fantastic. I have one last question, and then I want to go back to Patrick because I can see Patrick is boiling over there. He has so many thoughts going on right now. I want to get back to Patrick. Crystal, tell us about marketing cost. And now most of what we do in 3D and media, let's face it, a 2D photograph creates a 3D environment too. How do you think about a marketing budget for each listing?
So I love that Patrick talked about the accessibility of these products now, right? So, I mean, like Sarah, our MLS put out flow plan for us. And so at midnight on one night, after I had finished all of the stuff that I had stacked on my desk for the day, I was like, hey, I want to watch this video and see what this product is about because it sounds interesting. And that's how I adopted that product, right? So I picked it up as an afterthought, and I find a ton of value in it, and I get a discount because of our membership. So it's not that it's a free product, but it's a discounted product. And, that's huge. And so as Matterport emerges from a very expensive camera into an app, and now I have a digital tool and I carry this little box around with me all day. And, it becomes my professional photography when I'm in an area that doesn't have a professional photographer, then my costs overall really have come down. So now I can translate some of that budget into, what other platforms can I add this listing to enhance our audience. And so, it's become an interesting shift from I have to hire really, really expensive services to now I can use some expensive services and I can add in other programs that are going to be spread across all of my listings and all of my buyers for the year, as opposed to a budget for a single program. So I really look at it as a yearly, annually kind of base budget.
Okay, I think that's something I've been working in digital media for 20 plus years. It's just the environment I've always inhabited. And I think that one of the things that we have seen going back to the 90s, I realized that was so long ago, is this idea of modularity. And we live in this postmodern world where a particular tool or concept may work for us in one instance, but in another it doesn't. And that explains to me completely why you are a member of 4 different MLSs, or why I am licensed in 2 different states, because you want to follow your customers, you want to provide services for them. So I think that to the degree that we create modularity with our tools and our services, and the broker and the clients can drive the process, we put them in charge, we're really working for them. That's really what I hear hear you talking about. And thanks so much for that, Patrick. There are so many things that we haven't talked about. Look at the time right now, 11:31, and we've only got to page 1 of Patrick's thesis that he sent me a week ago. What do you think, Patrick, are some of the other topics that
Well,
are related to this discussion?
well, I think that the audience out there wants to hear how easy it is to get. You can get a floor plan, whether it's through Kubicasa, Matterport, a two-dimensional one, or flow plan for underneath $30. And you use your camera on your phone and it will give it back to you within 24 to 48 hours. That's easy to get it. An 8-year-old can use it and there's training on them. So look at those. It's Kubicasa, Matterport, or flow plan.
Can I ask you a question about that, Patrick?
Yeah.
I'm in Lone Tree, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, many hours from a professional photographer. I am just a realtor, and here's the house on the mesa that it's on half an acre, and I'm supposed to take this to market. I go out there with my iPhone 13 because somebody gave that to me and said, your pictures are so bad, David, you really should up your game. So I got the iPhone 13 and I'm struggling with it. Okay. And I take some pictures. Are there places where I can go with my own photography that will enhance them, that will remove the shadows like you're talking about? Is there a way I can up my game if I can't hire the $500 photographer?
I think this goes back to investing in your business. I don't know how everybody has money to invest in their business, and I don't know of every remote location. There's agencies out there that if you go to Matterport and buy the Matterport camera, the Pro, which is $2,000, that camera is an app-ready one. Literally, a teenager can use it to somebody who is 80 years old. It's so easy to use. You just follow your app. What that device will give you, like I said, is not just the virtual 3D tour. It'll give you a video that it spits out. It'll give you the photos that it spits out, and they're already ready to go. They're not as good as a professional, but they're not as bad as an iPhone.
Yeah, and I think we should also mention that Matterport now has the Access, which is a mount for an app and a mount. So you don't have to hire them. I'm sorry, Patrick, we don't have to hire the Matterport guy anymore. As soon as that product comes, I can see Chris out there walking around.
Well, it depends on how people feel. Like the drones came out. Some agents went out and bought their own drones. They do their own drone photography. Others hire a professional. It depends on this. The use of these applications comes down to, if you wanted to get Matterport and run it yourself, you could be doing it for underneath $20 a listing. That's cheap. If you want to hire it out, it's a couple $100. You decide. But we're at a stage now where technology is there and change has to happen for our industry, because this is going down to listings. 74% of people that have a Matterport-like tour win listings. So this isn't about what your client wants. This is about your business. If you don't have these technologies and offer them, you're going to lose business to people that do have them. And that's the secret sauce. Your competition's not going to say, we're winning all these listings and going to tell you how we're going to get these listings. To me, is the knowledge that goes back to Sarah saying, we need to train. Yes, we believe the same thing at our MLS. Knowledge is king, but content is king. So content for the realtors that they can put on social media and everything. If you don't have the right modern content, then you're wrong. This breeds us into where I think we need to go is appraisals. It's important to know that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae basically came out, and we are going to be doing sight unseen appraisals in the very near term future. Appraisers are not out there in the masses. It is a dying industry out there. They are swamped. So what I have to say is, what happens when we go to, and how much is the value proposition on your digital content now that the appraiser is going to be using that on their platform? If you don't have a Matterport tour, if you don't have the professional photography, if you don't have the floor plan, they're not going to be able to, again, have the efficiencies of doing the appraisal in time. I put this out to Crystal and I said, what would you tell a client if their appraisal is coming up to do to their house? And what would you say? Keep it clean, make sure it's shiny, best presenting. You're going to make it best dressed. Flip it on its head and say, now it's digital. What do you tell the client that you need to get the best appraisal for their property? You better have something where that appraiser can go in there. With Matterport, they've advanced their technology to Matter tags. If you have foam walls, you can put a tag in there that the appraiser can walk through and see the tag. If there's slow closed drawers, they can know everything that's a value proposition. So when they're valuing that property and they're walking through it, you're darn right that the appraisal is going to be top notch because you've given them all the tools there. But the value
you can't talk about appraisals without realizing that when we present a listing, we are presenting a value, a perception of value. That's what an appraiser does. Okay, remember the days of real estate when the appraiser, they allegedly drove by and did a valuation on a property. I could see what you're talking about, where our appraisals become better and by using technology. So I'm hopeful on this. I also want to come back to the point of departure for you, Patrick, where you said content is king. We all heard that. We all know it. Social media, okay. I kind of believe that every house is a story, and your job is to tell that story of that house. And then you have another job, which is to be legally and ethical and help your clients walk through a transaction that is both legal and ethical. One other thing I want to say about content, because I think for all the people who are participating today, that we have a place, we have a number of platforms that don't cost anything, where we can tell our story and we can tell the story of our clients, and that's on social media. Not everybody loves social media. That's okay. But social media is the first place people can go to see your photography, to see your listings, and to see how you present that photography. So I think those are great points, Patrick. What else? You want to say something,
right.
Sarah?
I was just going to jump in real quick as you were talking about social media, because for those agents that may not know a lot about it, or, some people don't get into social media so much, there is a company called Elevate out there that will give classes on how to use the social media content in real estate. So those type of ideas and those avenues are out there as well.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off the pace with social media, because simply is if you use the MLS to post up good content, photos, videos, and everything, it syndicates out to all the sources you need. And I have to disagree with David. I would say the Zillows, the Realtor.coms are the first source of your fishing rod. They're the ones that are going to get hit first. Once they see your listing up there, you should not post all 100 photos up there. They're going to go look for it online. And when they Google that search, they're going to hit your company website. That's where you should have more content.
I'm totally in agreement. Yeah. I've heard a number of brokers say recently that the most important thing that an MLS does to them is propagate and syndicate to national platforms. That was their number one thing. And that's a different world, right? That's a different world.
Well, it's not. It's basically the seamless transaction of the power of the MLS and how it helps them function. You hear this word out there, social media, these niches. Yes, if that's your thing and you're getting business from them, great. But if you don't have a great website to land to and you don't put good content up there, it's a losing cause. But you're exactly right. Once I get the video and all this content, how far do I want to push it out to get more audience out there?
Okay.
Reality today is you don't have to push it that far.
Very, very good. I got one other request. We're down to a few minutes here. Would the three of you please put your email in the chat? Because I know people are really interested in what you're saying and would like to reach out to you. So if you guys would put your email in the chat, that'll give our audience a way to respond. And I'll put I'm DJB at skyhorseglobal.com. I'm there as well. But what a fantastic conversation. I want to just jump back to get a couple closing remarks from each of you. Sarah, what are you taking away from our conversation today?
I loved hearing from, especially from Crystal, because like I said, we're in different states, and it's always interesting to find agents that have to join multiple MLSs because we share a lot of people with other MLSs. And, I always love going out and finding new tools for our members, whether it's at mid-year, whether it's at NAR, CMLS, any of those, going to those vendors and finding out what's new, what's hitting, to give our members the best chance and the best shot when it comes to marketing their properties, and more bang for the buck, really, for their membership.
Okay, Patrick, what's your parting comment?
Well, I think what the future holds is we know this is a path that we're in a new era since COVID. It's not getting any slower. Expectations are there. These tools we went over, I would say go research them. Take a look at them. They're very easy to use. If you implement them, they will impact your business tenfold, guaranteed.
Is there, I feel like you have a lot of love for Matterport. I don't know if you're.
No, I think I always look for DJI as the drones. I use them in Matterport. Typically, leaders in the industry have the latest tech. If you use any other person, like if you don't use a DJI drone and it gives you great shots, if you're not using Matterport and it gives you a great 3D tour, that's more. You just have to have one. But to me, it's simplicity and cost that goes down to Sarah's point. Is like I want to find the cheapest cost. And working with Matterport is, yes, you can get basically the 3D tours and all that content that the realtors need for an inexpensive price. And they have the best tech that's out there. So, of course, I'm going to use them as the peer until somebody else reaches the top level. I believe that's what realtors deserve, is the best of the best and leaders in the industry.
Okay, that's your leader. Sarah, I want to jump back to you.
Yes, sir.
Who are leaders in the industry for you? When you need to problem solve, you need tools, you need solutions, where do you go?
Oh my. I have no qualms of picking up the phone and calling other MLSs and seeing what they're doing. Poor Patrick is now going to be on my call list since we've been going
We're all
through
going to
this
be calling
together.
Patrick.
Yeah,
I got him on my speed dial.
But for me, part of it is going to the trade shows, finding out. Sometimes it's on LinkedIn. I'll turn around and see something on LinkedIn and go, whoa, what is that? Sometimes it's vendors contacting me saying, hey, maybe somebody that I've worked with in the past over the years or something, saying, hey, we've got a new product. So I use any and all avenues that I can to look at new products and services that we can possibly provide.
Okay, that's awesome. Crystal, I want to give you some time on the way out because you are with both feet on the ground. You are practicing real estate, and all of us are involved in some aspect of it, but you are the center of what's happening. My first parting question to you is, what and where do you go to problem solve in this new environment, this technology 3D environment? You don't have a lot of spare time. I know that much. Where do you go?
Number one, I always go to my brokerage. I'm very blessed. I have a great brokerage. We're very involved. We have people that do all kinds of things on all levels of involvement. And so that's been great for me. And then beyond that, I look at other brokers. So I'm watching social media from other brokers. I'm watching these summits that come out. I'm watching conferences. I go out and I look at those agents and I say, ooh, I like that. How did you do that? What are you doing? I want to do that. And so I feel like, to be on the forefront, to be on the emerging side, I have to be there. And then, sometimes my MLS surprises me and I get these cool tools that I didn't know existed. And then, you just get to squish them all together. But the best tool is the tool that you use, right? So it doesn't really matter. It just, if it's the one that you're using, then that's great. And you can add in those little ones on the side as you get time in this crazy market.
That's fantastic. It reminds me of one of the pieces of advice someone told me was, what's the best lead generation platform? We could have a whole session on lead generation platforms, right? But the reality is the best lead generation platform is the one you use every day, right? The one that I'm going to consistently reach into every day to reach as many people as possible. And I think that's true for what I'm hearing from the three of you as experts in different components of 3D tours, is the tool that works is the one that will help you get your client's property in front of as easily and accessibly and affordably as many people as possible. And that's probably going to change all the time. Would you all agree? I mean,
I think you can sum it down, David. You can sum it down to change. You know, realtors have to change with this new technology. MLSs have to change. Even their photographers. If your photographer doesn't even know anything about a 3D tour, you might need to look for a new photographer.
Fantastic.
I mean, just this change is straight across the board because everything is changing underneath us, and it's just not one party.
And that's my parting point. Change. I want to thank Megan McFarland and the other MLSs that came together to do this. We don't have time for change, but you know, there's Megan forcing us to change. And I think it's so fantastic that in New Mexico, we have a statewide MLS where I can connect with Crystal in another part. In Colorado, all the MLSs now data share. So when I log in on one platform, I see all the MLSs. That's fantastic. But Megan has been really great about pushing this forward tirelessly, getting us to communicate, to collaborate, to work off of a larger playing field. And I thank all three of you and Megan so much for a great conversation.
Thank you, David.
And I hope it continues. I hope we'll be on the phone, email. Thanks a lot.
Hey, David, thank you so much. And thanks, Patrick and Sarah and Crystal, for all your input. And I hope everybody at least took a couple of tidbits, because I counted, I think, 15 tidbits to take away. So thank you very much, David, and always great to see you again as well.